Third temple points to discuss. What was the purpose and location of the first temple that was built? What was the reason for constructing the second temple and where was it located? What are the plans or expectations regarding the third temple? Before we proceed to discuss the first temple, let's explore the history associated with this particular temple. Before the commandments of God were given to mankind, people lived as they wished without fearing the consequences of evil and good. God said to Abraham, "Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grievous and would destroy people." But Abraham responded to God, treating the righteous and the wicked alike, saying, "Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right?" God gave a chance to search for righteous people, but Abraham couldn't even find 5 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. God was trying to teach Abraham that all are sinners by nature and practice, falling short of the glory of God. Romans chapter 3 verse 23. The way out is through the sacrifice of sheep. God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Genesis chapter 22 verses 1 to 2. Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son?" Abraham replied. "The fire and wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together. Genesis chapter 22 verses 7 to 8. God was teaching Abraham that remission for sins involves a death penalty on behalf of man, and so God provided a ram, sheep, in place of his son. This sacrificial act of the sheep symbolizes Jesus Christ and his shedding of blood. Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob and what you are to tell the people of Israel. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession." Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. Exodus chapter 19 verses 3 to 6. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the 3rd day, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain is to be put to death. They are to be stoned or shot with arrows, not a hand is to be laid on them. No person or animal shall be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they approach the mountain. After Moses had gone down the mountain to the people, he consecrated them, and they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, "Prepare yourselves for the third day. Abstain from sexual relations." Exodus chapter 19 verses 10 to 15. According to the book of Exodus in the Torah, the 10 Commandments were revealed to Moses at Mount Sinai, told by Moses to the Israelites, inscribed by the finger of God on 2 tablets of stone. Commandment is nothing but God's law to the people how to follow and live. The tabernacle of Moses was the temporary place of worship that the Israelites built according to God's specifications while wandering the desert and used until King Solomon built a temple. Ark of Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is said to be the container used to carry the 2 tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God on the 2 tablets of stone called 10 Commandments brought down from Mount Sinai by Moses and Aaron's rod, and a jar of manna was also put in there, was made of acacia wood overlaid with gold. The ark was to be housed in the inner sanctum of the tabernacle in the desert and eventually in the temple when it was built in Jerusalem. This chest is known as the Ark of the Covenant. Complete details about First Temple details the King Solomon's Temple or the First Temple, a permanent resting place for that Ark of the Covenant which contained the 10 Commandments. Solomon's Temple was built on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, 2 Chronicles chapter 3 verse 1. Tabernacle. The whole tabernacle was holy in that it was set apart for worship and sacrifices to God. However, the tabernacle was separated into 3 areas: 1. The outer court, 2. The holy place, 3. The most holy place, or Holy of Holies. One. Outer court services. Priests and Levites ministered in the outer court as they offered sacrifices for sin and guilt as well as the other sacrifices. Two. The holy place. Only the priests could enter. This place was set apart, it was holy. Upon entering, a priest would be in the holy place, where there were 3 articles of furniture. A. 1 was the golden lampstand, which was to be kept burning continually, giving light to the holy place. B. The second article of furniture in the holy place was the table for the bread of presence, or the table of showbread. C. The final article in the holy place was the altar of incense. Special incense was to be burned each morning and evening as an offering to the Lord. The holy place was set apart, holy, because it was a special representation and reminder of the presence of God. Three. Holy of Holies, or most holy place. Only the high priest could enter the most holy place, and only once per year on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. Before entering, the high priest washed, put put on special clothing, and gathered incense and the blood from a sacrificed animal. Once inside the Holy of Holies, the high priest burned the incense, then sprinkled the blood on the mercy seat of the ark, the lid with the angel figures. This act was part of a ceremony completed every year where the Israelites as a nation would ask God for forgiveness of their sins. The Holy of Holies was separated from the rest of the tabernacle, and later the temple, by a large veil. All the services which carried out in the temple was mixed tradition from Abraham to Moses 1. Moses' hand written by God on stone tablet will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Two. Abraham, the act of offering a sheep on behalf of Isaac symbolizes Jesus' sacrificial offering on the cross for all of humanity. Three. The ark was brought into the temple. Suddenly a cloud filled the temple as the priests finished putting the ark in the Holy of Holies. The Lord's glory was in that cloud, and the light from it was so bright that the priests could not stay inside to do their work. This is what is called the Shekinah glory. Second Temple Zerubbabel began rebuilding the temple with the help of Joshua, the high priest, Ezra chapter 3 verses 2 to 3, 8. 70 years later, a second temple was completed on the same site, and sacrifices again resumed. The book of Ezra chronicles the building of the second temple. During the 1st century, Herod greatly enlarged and expanded this temple, which became known as Herod's Temple. Herod's temple lasted until AD 70, which marked the end of the Second Temple era. At that time, after a long war between the Jewish zealots and the Roman authorities, 4 Roman legions, led by Titus, besieged Jerusalem and burned down the temple. As the temple burned, the gold and silver ornamentation melted and seeped between the cracks in the stones. In their zeal for a stipend, the Roman soldiers took the temple apart, stone by stone, fulfilling Jesus' prophecy in Matthew chapter 24 verses 1 to 3. The Jewish people were scattered in the diaspora, and did not return en masse to Israel until after World War II. The Temple Mount, where Herod's temple stood, is now home to the Islamic Dome of the Rock. The Dome and Al-Aqsa Mosque are both located on the Temple Mount. Al-Aqsa compound houses 2 holy places, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, which is a 7th century structure where the Prophet Muhammad is believed to have ascended to heaven. All that remains of Herod's work on the Temple Mount is the Western Wall, a 1,600-foot-long portion of the retaining wall Herod had constructed to expand the Temple Mount. It was destroyed by the Romans in AD 70, during the siege of Jerusalem. Only a small portion of the retaining wall remains to this day, known as the Wailing Wall. Third Temple rebuilding. The Jewish temple is closely linked to restoring Israel in the Messianic era. It's important because it's where many believe the Messiah, Jesus, will rule the world from as his kingdom's center. Section 1. The role of a physical temple and Jesus' work. Jesus' work for personal salvation makes a physical temple unnecessary. The physical temple was made obsolete by Christ. Christianity does not rely on a physical temple. The Jewish temple is not intended for Gentiles or Christians. In the millennium, as described in Ezekiel chapter 40 to 48th chapter, the Jews will serve Christ in the temple for a national and governmental purpose, distinct from personal salvation. Section 2. Rebuilding the temple and the sacrificial system. *. Rebuilding the temple implies a return to the sacrificial system of the Mosaic Law. In the end times, Jews are expected to turn towards Christ. All of Israel entering the millennium will be saved. Animal sacrifices will resume in the rebuilt temple, but they are not linked to personal salvation or following Christ. Section 3. Political tension and rebuilding the temple. *. The ongoing political tension and disputes over Jerusalem make rebuilding the temple a challenge. This situation might escalate into a war because of long-standing conflicts. The Jewish community is eager to resume their Jewish practices and are becoming impatient. The surrounding nations are seeking to eliminate the Jewish presence and are also losing patience. If sacrifices on the Temple Mount, even for a short period, are resumed, it could provoke an attack on Jerusalem. Regardless of the reasons behind the Jewish efforts to rebuild the temple, there will likely be opposition and resistance from the Muslim community. The Temple Mount, where Herod's temple stood, is now home to the Islamic Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are both situated on the Temple Mount. The Al-Aqsa compound houses two significant holy places, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, a 7th century structure believed to be where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. Here are the main points. Jews will rebuild the temple in the future. Temple Mount area, potentially allowing regular sacrifices to begin. And he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of the week he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall come one who makes desolate, until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. Daniel chapter 9 verse 27. According to historical records and Jewish beliefs, sacrifices can only restart when the Jews can reach the place where they believe the Holy of Holies used to be. The specific location matters. It must be where the Holy of Holies once was, and no other spot on the Temple Mount will do. We're uncertain if the Jews will actually build a structure in that exact spot during the tribulation, but they might attempt it. This attempt to build a temple might face obstacles and might not succeed completely. Even if a pre-millennial temple is constructed, it might not last very long. Revelation chapter 11 verse 2 I was given a reed like a measuring rod and was told, Go and measure the temple of God and the altar, with its worshippers. But exclude the outer court, do not measure it, because it has been given to the Gentiles. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months. The beast Antichrist that comes up from the abyss will attack them, and overpower and kill them. Antichrist rules for 3.5 years. Ezekiel chapter 43 tells us that the temple Ezekiel envisioned will be filled with the glory of the Lord. I don't see how this could occur in the current age before Christ's return. During the church age, God is not likely to manifest his Shekinah glory in this manner. However, after the second advent, this isn't an issue, as God, in the person of Jesus, will be visibly present. Wherever Jesus is, the glory of the Lord will also be present. In fact, we can be certain of it, especially when considering this prophecy about Israel in the Messianic era. Small wonder that unbelievers and legalists called Jesus a blasphemer. How could this man be God, while everyone knew God was in the Holy of Holies? In fact, God is everywhere. Again, how could this man be God? He was not even a priest. And descended only from Galilean peasant stock. A carpenter's son. From Nazareth, of all places. Come on. The divine presence, the Father, dwelled within the Holy of Holies at that time. And here is this man, who claims, I and my Father are one. Jesus, John chapter 10 verse 30. Jews had then, and still have today, no concept of more than one God. Although, at times, they called him Elohim, indeed, a plural name. Jesus himself is Elohim. The book of Old Testament, Torah, tells all about one and only Savior of the world, Messiah, Jesus Christ, who will fight for Israel. Unfortunately, they did not believe at all when Jesus came to the world. If we really study our Bibles, we will come to realize that some knowledge of Judaism is important to all Christians, because much of the symbolism in Jewish rites, feasts, traditions, etc., pertains to Messiah. Much of the Old Testament law, Torah, all of the feasts of Jehovah, and most prophecy is, of course, Christ-centered. All the mystery hidden for ages is in knowing Jesus alone. I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers and sisters, so that you may not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles has come in, and in this way all Israel will be saved. All Israel will be saved. Romans chapter 11 verses 25 to 32. Please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Thank you.